Welcome. Welcome to the Chemistry of Life, Raj Narayanan's Biochemistry Lecture Series, integrating life with updated scientific information, a multidisciplinary approach. Raj Narayanan's Biochemistry Lecture Series include a series of lectures which will be uploaded to this channel. The topics of lectures are on specific areas in the field of biochemistry and molecular biology. We hope these lectures will be very useful for students of undergraduate and postgraduate courses as well as researchers in the field of medical, paramedical, public health, biology and other branches of natural sciences. Diploma holders in paramedical sciences who want to upgrade and update their knowledge can also access this channel. Your suggestions and comments are very much appreciated and may help in the development of this channel. Most of the topics in this lecture series are prepared in an integrated platform by keeping a multidisciplinary approach that is not usually seen even in biochemistry reference books. Therefore, we suggest these lectures will be highly useful even for practicing medical professionals. The lectures in this series will be useful for competitive entrance examinations like medical entrance examination, medical PG entrance examination, UGC, CSIR, ICMR, JRF, NET examinations, and also for PG entrance examinations in basic sciences. Chemistry of Life, Raj Narayanan's Biochemistry Lecture Series, scientific, reliable, authentic, precise and simple explanations for the chemical basis of life. Based on the comments and feedback, more detailed explanation videos will be uploaded to this channel in the future. We request not to miss any part of this lecture for getting a complete idea about the chemistry of life. Welcome to Lecture 2 in Raj Narayanan's Biochemistry Lecture Series. We hope you have already gone through Lecture 1, Introduction to the Chemistry of Life, which is a very important prerequisite to attend Lecture 2. In Lecture 2, we are going to discuss about different types of biomolecules, their structure, classification, properties, and functions. In Lecture 1, Introduction to the Chemistry of Life, we have already discussed about the importance of studying biochemistry and molecular biology. We know biochemistry deals with the study of living organisms. It deals with the chemistry of life. In a detailed sense, as we have discussed in Lecture 1, Introduction to the Chemistry of Life, we can say biochemistry is an interdisciplinary branch of science that deals with the structure, chemistry, properties and functions of different types of biomolecules and their interactions. Here, by interaction we mean metabolism. And because of this metabolism, the physiological functions, life activities and life is maintained in an organism. When metabolism is disordered or become abnormal, the person will get diseases and disorders. When metabolism stops, death occurs. So metabolism is considered as the most fundamental property of life. A living thing can be differentiated from a non-living matter by the occurrence of metabolic processes. So, in order to understand about life scientifically, and authentically we have to explore metabolic processes. For that, we need to understand the chemistry and properties of enzymes, other proteins, and all other groups of biomolecules like DNA, RNA, carbohydrates, lipids, hormones, vitamins, etc. in detail. Therefore, first of all, the structure, properties and functions of these biomolecules must be considered for a thorough understanding of metabolic processes and also the chemical basis of life. Raj Narayanan's Biochemistry Lecture Series, Lecture 2, discuss about different types of biomolecules, their structure, chemistry, properties and functions. Lecture 2, Biomolecules, will be delivered as 4 parts. Part 1 deals with carbohydrate, Part 2 deals with lipids, Part 3 deals with amino acids and proteins, and Part 4 deals with nucleic acids. Let's pass on to the first part of Lecture 2, Biomolecules. So, the first part of Lecture 2, Biomolecule is Part 1, Carbohydrates. In this lecture, we are going to discuss about the structure, chemistry, properties and functions of different carbohydrates. In human system, carbohydrates constitute 2% of the body weight, approximately. In plants, carbohydrates constitute the major biomolecules, as cellulose is a carbohydrate, and cellulose being the most abundant biomolecule in the entire biosphere. Why we discuss about carbohydrates first before discussing about other biomolecules, other biopolymers? There are reasons. Number 1, carbohydrates have comparatively simple structure and relatively homogeneous chemistry compared to other biomolecules. Reason 2, carbohydrates, for example D-glucose, is the only biomolecule that is directly synthesized from inorganic molecules in the living system by a process called photosynthesis that takes place in green plants. Carbon dioxide and water are the raw materials, and sun is the source of energy. Light energy is converted into chemical energy that is stored in the D-glucose synthesized. And reason 3, D-glucose can be considered as the master biomolecule because it is the first formed biomolecule and it is the direct precursor of all other carbohydrates and the indirect precursor of all other biomolecules present in the living system. So D-glucose is the master biomolecule, and because as D-glucose is a carbohydrate, we have to first discuss about carbohydrate. D-glucose is also the main source of energy in most animals, including humans. Because of all these reasons, it is better to have a discussion about the structure, chemistry, properties and functions of carbohydrates before proceeding to other biomolecules. Let's come to the topic. Carbohydrates are the most abundant biomolecule in nature, because we found that cellulose is present in plants, And cellulose is the most abundant carbohydrate as well as the most abundant biomolecule in the biosphere. Carbohydrates are mainly composed of elements such as carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, and are usually called as the hydrates of carbon. So, the chief elements present in carbohydrates are carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. And in some cases, in certain cases, carbohydrates may also contain other elements like nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfur. So carbohydrates are mainly composed of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, and in rare cases they also contain nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfur. We know other biomolecules also, for example amino acids, fatty acids, nucleotides. All these biomolecules also have the same composition: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfur. So how we can differentiate carbohydrates from other biomolecule? We cannot differentiate carbohydrate from other biomolecule by observing their elemental composition. So there should be a clear-cut definition. By this definition, we should differentiate carbohydrate from other biomolecules. How we can define carbohydrates and how we can differentiate carbohydrate from other biomolecules? Let's go to the definition. Carbohydrates are defined as polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxyketones or substances that yield such compounds on hydrolysis. So this could be a not 100% but almost complete definition for carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are defined as polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxyketones or substances that yield such compounds on hydrolysis. What does it mean? Polyhydroxy. Polyhydroxy means two or more than two hydroxyl group must be present with an aldehyde group. So a compound containing two or more than two hydroxyl groups with an aldehyde group can be called as a carbohydrate. Or polyhydroxyketone. Polyhydroxyketone means a compound which contains two or more hydroxyl group with a keto group. See? So carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxyketone or substances that yield such compounds. Such compounds mean polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxyketones during hydrolysis. What does it mean? Carbohydrates are either polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxyketones, or they are polymers of polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxyketones. Now by simple examples we can clearly, once again we can understand this definition. Polyhydroxyaldehydes, for example D-glucose is a polyhydroxyaldehyde. It has 6 carbon atoms attached to all carbon atoms except one. There are hydroxyl group, that means there are many hydroxyl group, and there is an aldehyde group. And let's see the example of D-fructose. D-fructose is a polyhydroxyketone. There are many hydroxyl group, and a keto group. And let's see examples for compounds that yield polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxyketones during hydrolysis. Glycogen is a polymer of D-glucose. So during hydrolysis or during digestion of glycogen, D-glucose will be liberated or D-glucose will be formed. And inulin is an example for the polymer of D-fructose, and during the digestion of D-fructose, during the digestion of inulin, D fructose units will be formed. So I hope the definition is clear. Carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxy ketones or substances that yield such compounds on hydrolysis. So with this definition, we can differentiate carbohydrates from other biomolecules. Now let's see some of the important functions of carbohydrates in the living system. Carbohydrates is the main source of energy for most organisms. Glucose is mainly oxidized in our body, in human body, for energy purpose, and is the only source of energy for the nervous system and RBCs under normal physiological condition. It is the main source of energy for most organisms, and it is the main source of energy for human beings, and it is the only source of energy for RBC, and it is the only source of energy for nervous system under normal physiological condition. During certain physiological conditions, nervous system can utilize other fuel molecules as source of energy, that we will discuss later when we discuss brain metabolism. Another important function of carbohydrate is it forms an important structural component of cell membrane. In the introductory part, we have discussed about the structure of cell membrane. We found that the cell membrane is having three layers: outer layer, middle layer, and inner layer. It is having a lipid bilayer structure. It's explained by fluid mosaic model. We found that carbohydrates associate with proteins to form glycoproteins, and carbohydrates associate with the lipid to form glycolipid. So carbohydrates are present in two forms in membrane structure. One is glycoprotein and the other is glycolipid. Glycoprotein is the association of carbohydrate with protein, and glycolipid is the association of lipids with carbohydrate. Glycogen is the stored form of energy in liver and skeletal muscle. We can say glycogen is a reserve form of energy. If there is excess of glucose in our body, this glucose will be converted into glycogen by a process known as glycogen synthesis, and this glycogen will be stored in liver and muscle. And glycogen stored in liver, we will say liver glycogen is a source of D-glucose during hyperglycemia and also during emergency situations, and the glycogen stored in muscle tissue is a source of energy for muscle contraction during severe muscular exercises or heavy muscular exercises. Ribose and deoxyribose sugars are carbohydrates which form important structural components of RNA and DNA respectively. Ribose sugar is present in RNA and deoxyribose sugar is present in DNA. RNA means ribonucleic acid. The name comes from ribose sugar. DNA means deoxyribonucleic acid. The name comes from deoxyribose sugar. So ribose and deoxyribose sugars are carbohydrates which are important structural components of nucleic acid like RNA and DNA. Vitamin C, ascorbic acid, is a carbohydrate derivative. Vitamin C, the chemical name of vitamin C is ascorbic acid. It is a very important vitamin. It is a carbohydrate derivative. Erythromycin, streptomycin, all these are antibiotics. Drug like Avopirin, it is a sodium pump inhibitor, are all derived from carbohydrates. They are all carbohydrate derivatives. Cellulose is A structural polysaccharide present in plant cell wall which provides protection and mechanical support. Cellulose present in the food, we will say the fiber content of the food, functions as a laxative. You know laxative. Laxative means substances that facilitate the movement of food in the intestine. It also helps in digestion, absorption, and also it reduces constipation. So even though cellulose is not digested, even though cellulose is not useful for our system as an energy source or as a source of D-glucose, because it will not be digested in our system, there is no cellulase enzyme in human intestine, but cellulose serves as dietary fiber which helps in digestion, absorption, and also the movement of food in the intestine. It functions as a laxative. Chitin is a structural polysaccharide which is present in the exoskeleton of certain marine invertebrates, crustaceans, crab, prawn, etc. Lactose is a disaccharide sugar present in milk which is the only source of carbohydrate, the only source of D-glucose that support brain development in early stages. See, in children, especially in newborns, the only source of D-glucose is lactose sugar present in milk. Lactose is also known as milk sugar because it is present only in milk, and the lactose is the source of D-glucose, and this D-glucose is very important. We found that for the nervous system, the only source of energy is D-glucose. So for brain development during childhood, this lactose is very supportive. Lactose present in milk is very helpful. So these are the general functions of carbohydrates, general biological functions of carbohydrate. There are also other functions for carbohydrates that we will discuss in due course. Now let's proceed to the classification of carbohydrate. Now so far we have discussed the definition of carbohydrate, the elemental composition of carbohydrate, and the biological functions of carbohydrate. Now we are going to discuss the classification of carbohydrate. Why we need to classify carbohydrate? Because carbohydrates include different types of biomolecules which are structurally different from one another. So it is better to classify the carbohydrates into different groups. After that we will discuss about their chemistry. Classification of carbohydrates. The simplest unit of a carbohydrate is called a saccharide unit. So this term is very important, saccharide unit. The term saccharide came from a Greek word saccharon, meaning sweet to taste. So something which is sweet to taste is known as saccharon in Greek, and when it is converted into English, it became saccharide. So carbohydrate, the simplest unit of carbohydrate is a substance or a molecule or a group that is sweet in taste. The saccharide unit cannot be hydrolyzed into simpler unit without the loss of its property. So we can say the ultimate unit of a carbohydrate is saccharide unit, which cannot be hydrolyzed into simpler units. Carbohydrates may differ in the number of saccharide units. So there are carbohydrates containing varying number of saccharide units. It may contain one or few or many number of saccharide units based on the number of saccharide unit present, that is based on the structural complexity. Carbohydrates are classified into three major classes. So what is the basis for the classification of carbohydrates? The basis for the classification of carbohydrate is the number of saccharide unit, the number of building units. Depending on the number of saccharide units, carbohydrates are classified. Depending on the chemical complexity, carbohydrates are classified. Monosaccharides. From the name, we can understand monosaccharides are carbohydrates that contain only one saccharide unit. Mono means one. So monosaccharides are carbohydrates that contain one saccharide unit. And how many carbon atoms are present in a saccharide unit? Saccharide unit may differ in the number of carbon atoms. There are saccharide units containing 3 carbon atom. There are saccharide units containing 4 carbon atom, 5 carbon atom, 6 carbon atom, and 7 carbon atom. So we can say that monosaccharides are the simplest carbohydrates that contain only one saccharide unit, and this saccharide unit may contain 3 up to 7 carbon atom. We will discuss more about monosaccharides later on. First, let's see which is the next group of carbohydrate. Oligosaccharide. Oligosaccharides, oligo means few. Few means finger countable. How many fingers are there in our hands? 10 fingers are there. Just assume like that. So oligosaccharides are carbohydrates which contain 2 to 10 monosaccharide units which are linked together by certain special type of chemical linkages known as glycosidic linkage. So the second group of carbohydrate is oligosaccharide. Oligosaccharides are little complex forms of carbohydrates compared to monosaccharide because they contain 2 up to 10 monosaccharide units, in which the monosaccharide units are linked together by special types of linkages known as glycosidic linkages or glycosidic bonds. The third group of carbohydrate is polysaccharide. Poly means many. Here many means 11 or more. We found that oligosaccharide contain 2 to 10 monosaccharide unit or 2 to 10 saccharide units. Polysaccharide contain more than 10, 11 or more. Polysaccharide contain more than 10 saccharide units linked together by glycosidic linkages. It may contain even hundreds or thousands of monosaccharide units. It is indefinite. There are polysaccharides containing 11 saccharide units. There are polysaccharides containing 100 saccharide unit, 200 saccharide unit, 1000 saccharide unit, or it can be 10,000 saccharide unit. So in a polysaccharide, the saccharide units are linked together by glycosidic linkages, the same glycosidic linkages, and the number of glycosidic linkage will be 1 minus n minus 1. What is n? N is the number of saccharide units. For example, if there are 100 saccharide units in a polysaccharide, there will be 99 glycosidic linkages. So polysaccharides are polymers, long chains formed of monosaccharide units. So this is the basic classification of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are classified into 3 groups based on the number of saccharide units: monosaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. Monosaccharides contain only one saccharide unit. They are the simplest carbohydrates. Oligosaccharides contain 2 to 10 saccharide units linked together by glycosidic linkages, and polysaccharides contain large numbers of monosaccharides or saccharide units linked together by glycosidic linkages. So which one is the most complex of all carbohydrates? Which group is most complex? Polysaccharides are the most complex of all carbohydrates, and monosaccharides are the simplest of all carbohydrates. And we found that saccharide units are of different types based on their number of carbon atoms. Saccharide unit may contain 3 up to 7 carbon atoms. So the saccharide unit which contain 3 carbon atoms are the simplest one, and the saccharide unit which contains 7 carbon atoms are the complex one. Now we are going to consider each group separately. First, let's discuss about monosaccharides. The general properties of monosaccharide. Monosaccharides are the simplest carbohydrates, contain only one saccharide unit that cannot be hydrolyzed into simpler forms, generally sweet to taste, and are usually called as simple sugars. Monosaccharide contain 3 to 7 carbon atoms in their structure. The general formula of monosaccharide is CnH2nOn. That means carbon, hydrogen and oxygen are present in the ratio 1:2:1. For example, if there are 3 carbon atoms in a monosaccharide unit, there will be 6 hydrogen atoms and 3 oxygen atoms. Carbon, hydrogen and oxygen are present in the ratio 1:2:1. Or we can write the formula like this: CH2ON times CH2ON times. So that is the general formula for monosaccharide. Or monosaccharide possesses either an aldehyde group or a keto group as their functional group. See, there will be a functional group in a monosaccharide unit or a saccharide unit. It is either an aldehyde group or it is a keto group. Both are not present in the same molecule. Either it will be an aldehyde group or it will be a keto group. Due to the presence of this carbonyl group, see, aldehyde group and keto groups are known as carbonyl group. That is a common name. Due to the presence of these carbonyl groups, all monosaccharides are having the property of reducing other compounds. They can reduce, because of the presence of this carbonyl group, they can reduce other compounds. It's a chemical property. They can reduce other compounds by getting oxidized themselves. The monosaccharide will get oxidized and at the same time it will reduce other substances. Because of this property, because of this chemical property, monosaccharides are also known as reducing sugars. Okay, as they have reducing property, they are also known as reducing sugars. Based on the reducing property of monosaccharide, they are specifically known as reducing sugars. So, the carbonyl group, the aldehyde group and keto groups are responsible for the reducing property of monosaccharides. Monosaccharides can exist in 2 forms: dextro form or D form and LEVO form or L form. Dextro means right, LEVO means left. What is the basis of this differentiation? What is the difference between D form and L form? D form and L form differs in the configuration of hydrogen and hydroxyl group in the penultimate carbon. If the hydroxyl group is present at the right hand side of the monosaccharide, right hand side of the penultimate carbon, that monosaccharide is called D form, and when OH group is present at the left hand side of the penultimate carbon, it is known as L form. So D form and L form of monosaccharides differs in the configuration of hydrogen and hydroxyl group on either side of the penultimate carbon atom. If hydroxyl group is present at the right hand side of the penultimate carbon, it is known as D form, and if hydroxyl group is present at the left hand side of the penultimate carbon, it is known as L form. Most of the monosaccharides present in the biological system are in the D form. L form of monosaccharide is present only in certain bacterial polysaccharide. See, which one is the active form, biologically active form of monosaccharide? That is D form of monosaccharide. And we found that D form and L form differs in their configuration of hydrogen and hydroxyl group at the penultimate carbon. What is penultimate carbon? Penultimate carbon is the carbon atom that is present just before the ultimate carbon or the final carbon atom. For example, D-glucose is having 6 carbon atoms. So 5th carbon is called penultimate carbon. D-ribose is having 5 carbon atoms. So the 4th carbon will be known as penultimate carbon. The numbering of carbon atom, everything we will see when we come to the chemistry of monosaccharides. For the time being, just understand, based on the configuration of hydrogen and hydroxyl group at the penultimate carbon, Monosaccharides are differentiated into 2, D and L form, and D form is the biologically active form. L form is rarely seen in the living system and not having much important functions. Now let's see how monosaccharides are further classified. Monosaccharides are further classified into different groups in two different ways, based on the type of functional group and based on the number of carbon atoms. So based on these two criteria, monosaccharides are further classified. Based on the type of functional group present, monosaccharides are classified into two: aldoses and ketoses. Aldoses are monosaccharides which contain an aldehyde group as its functional group. For example, glucose, ribose, erythrose, etc. Ketoses are monosaccharides that contain a keto group as its functional group. Examples: fructose, erythrulose, dihydroxyacetone, etc. So aldoses are monosaccharides containing aldehyde group as functional group, and ketoses are monosaccharides containing keto group as their functional group. So this is a classification based on the first criteria, based on the type of functional group. Based on the second criteria, so based on the number of carbon atoms, monosaccharides are classified into different groups: trioses containing 3 carbon atoms, tetroses containing 4 carbon atoms, pentoses containing 5 carbon atoms, hexoses containing 6 carbon atom, and heptoses containing 7 carbon atom. We found that saccharide unit may contain 3 up to 7 carbon atoms. So the monosaccharide containing 3 carbon atoms are known as trioses. Those containing 4 carbon atoms are known as tetroses, and the one which contain 5 carbon atoms are known as pentoses. Those containing 6 carbon atoms are known as hexoses, and heptoses contain 7 carbon atoms. So this is the classification of monosaccharide based on the number of carbon atoms. Now we are going to combine these two classifications or these two criteria. Trioses containing aldehyde group as functional group are known as aldotrioses. So we are combining both criteria. Aldotrioses containing aldehyde group as the functional group, at the same time it contains 3 carbon atom. Similarly, ketotrioses containing keto group as functional group and 3 carbon atoms. Similarly, tetroses are classified into aldotetroses and ketotetroses. Pentoses are classified into aldopentoses and ketopentoses. Hexoses are classified into aldohexoses and ketohexoses, and heptoses are classified into aldoheptoses and ketoheptoses. The molecular formula for trioses is C3H6O3, for tetroses C4H8O4, pentoses C5H10O5, hexoses C6H12O6, heptoses C7H14O7. See, altogether there are 10 different groups of monosaccharides based on the two criteria of classification, based on the number of carbon atoms and based on the type of functional group present. Out of these 10 groups, aldotriose, ketotriose, aldotetrose, ketotetrose, aldopentose, ketopentose, aldohexose, ketohexose, aldoheptose, ketoheptose. Out of these different groups, the most important group is hexoses. Aldohexoses and the ketohexoses are the most important among monosaccharide. Why? Because D-glucose, the master biomolecule, the first formed biomolecule, the most important carbohydrate, the most important energy source, D-glucose is it belongs to the group of hexoses, and specifically it is an aldohexose because it contains an aldehyde group. And these hexoses also have certain other biological significance. The hexoses are the only source of energy
or the only carbohydrate which can be used as energy source in our system. Triosis, tetrosis, heptosis, pentosis, they cannot provide energy during oxidation. The only group of carbohydrate, the only group of monosaccharide which can be oxidized in our system to produce energy is hexose group. Glucose, mannose, galactose and fructose are oxidized in our body for energy production. And there are also other significances. We have discussed about disaccharides and polysaccharides. Oligosaccharides and polysaccharides. Hexoses are the group of monosaccharides that can form. Certain pentoses also can form, but mainly hexoses are involved in polymerization reaction to form higher forms of carbohydrates like oligosaccharides and polysaccharides. For example, glycogen. Glycogen is a polymer of D-glucose. Inulin is a polymer of D-fructose. Cellulose is a polymer of D-glucose. Starch is a polymer of D-glucose. See, hexoses can polymerize to form complex type of carbohydrate. As I told you before, pentoses also can form certain complex carbohydrate, but these are very rare. So this is about the classification of monosaccharides, and there are so many examples. You can go through this chart and you can find examples for each group of monosaccharides. Okay, so based on two criteria, monosaccharides are again classified into 10 groups. Each of these groups are having their own significances. What is the importance of pentoses? We found that hexoses are involved in energy production. What about pentoses? Pentoses include a very important sugar that is known as ribose. Ribose cannot be utilized in our body for energy production, but ribose is a constituent of nucleic acid. Ribose is present in RNA. A derivative of ribose sugar, deoxyribose, is present in DNA. More details about the different types of monosaccharides we are going to discuss now. Now let's discuss the structure, properties and functions of some important monosaccharide. As I told you before, the most important carbohydrate and the most important monosaccharide is D-glucose. D-glucose is the most important and the most abundant of all monosaccharides present in the living system. It is also called as dextrose. Okay, D form of glucose is also known as dextrose. Glucose is an aldohexose sugar. The first carbon atom of D-glucose forms the functional group and is called carbonyl carbon atom. D-glucose forms the building blocks of polysaccharides such as starch, glycogen, cellulose, etc. In our body, D-glucose is oxidized by a metabolic pathway, an oxidative pathway, a degradative pathway called glycolytic pathway or glycolysis. Let's first discuss the structure of the glucose molecule. The structure of glucose molecules can be represented in three different ways. The first one is open chain structure, second one is Fischer's projection formula, and the third one is Haworth ring structure. Open chain structure is the simplified or simplest representation of the glucose structure. Let's see one by one. So this is the open chain structure of D-glucose. You can see there are 6 carbon atoms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The carbon atoms are numbered from one end where the aldehyde group, the carbonyl group is present. So the carbonyl carbon atom is the first carbon atom, and the second carbon atom is the one which is close to the first carbon atom. So in that way, in that direction, the numbering will be continued, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 carbon atoms. So carbonyl carbon atom is the first carbon atom in the case of D-glucose, and there are 6 carbon atom, and the fifth carbon atom is sixth carbon atom is the ultimate carbon atom, final carbon atom. So penultimate carbon is the carbon that is that comes just before the ultimate carbon. So in the case of D-glucose, the penultimate carbon atom is fifth carbon atom, and based on the configuration of hydrogen and hydroxyl group around the penultimate carbon atom, there are 2 different forms of D-glucose. Here the D-glucose is specifically known as the structure shown is D-glucose, dextro form of glucose, because the OH group is present at the right hand side of the penultimate carbon atom. If this OH group is at the left hand side, we can call it as L form of glucose. This one is D-glucose, D form of glucose. So this is the open chain structure of D-glucose molecule, and this is the Fischer's planar structure of D-glucose molecule. Emil Fischer, a scientist who observed that when D-glucose molecule is present in a watery medium, there will be a reaction between the carbonyl group, that means the aldehyde group present at the first carbon, with the hydroxyl group present at the fifth carbon atom, penultimate carbon atom. So as a result of this reaction is known as hemiacetal condensation reaction. As a result of this reaction, the hydrogen atom of the fifth hydroxyl group will be accepted by the keto group, or the aldehyde group. As a result, the C double bond O, okay, CHO means CH, C double bond O. So that C, one of the bond in this double bond, C double bond O, that will be broken, and the hydrogen will be added to the oxygen atom, and it will become CHOH. So since one bond is broken, one of the valencies of this carbon is having 4 valency. One valency of 1 electron of the carbon atom, the carbonyl carbon, will become free, and it will form a covalent linkage with the oxygen atom present at the penultimate carbon atom. Okay, so the oxygen of the penultimate hydroxyl group form a covalent linkage with the first carbon atom, carbonyl carbon atom, and the oxygen will shift to the center. So we can say that after the hemiacetal condensation reaction, there forms a bridge-like structure between, or bridge-like a bond between the first carbon atom and the fifth carbon atom through an oxygen atom. So this bridge, or this long bond, long covalent bond, is known as hemiacetal bridge. As a result of the hemiacetal bridge formation, the open chain structure of D-glucose molecule will become a ring structure. You can see starting from here, carbonyl carbon, number of first carbon, second carbon, third carbon, fourth carbon, fifth carbon, and the oxygen. So the first 5 carbon atom of D-glucose molecule and the oxygen form a 6-membered ring like structure. and this is explained by Emil Fischer, and this structure is known as Fischer's planar structure. So as a result of the formation of ring structure by hemiacetal condensation reaction results in the formation of an additional hydroxyl group at the carbonyl carbon atom. See, one hydroxyl group is formed. Previously it was aldehyde group, now it becomes hydroxyl group. And based on the presence of this hydroxyl group on either side of the first carbon atom, carbonyl carbon atom, there are two different forms of D-glucose, or there are two different forms of Fischer's planar structure for D-glucose. Alpha D-glucose, in which the OH group of the carbonyl carbon is present at the right hand side, and beta D-glucose, in which the OH group of carbonyl carbon is present at the left hand side. So there are two different forms of D-glucose in the Fischer's planar structure. One is alpha D-glucose, in which OH group is present at the right hand side of the first carbon or the carbonyl carbon, and beta D-glucose, in which the OH group is present at the left hand side of the first carbon atom or the carbonyl carbon atom. So these two forms, alpha and beta forms of D-glucose, are known as anomeric forms of D-glucose. So hemiacetal condensation reaction and the formation of ring structure lead to the formation of two different forms of anomeric forms, two different anomeric forms of D-glucose, alpha D-glucose and beta D-glucose. Now let's proceed to the explanation of or the details of Haworth ring structure. Emil Fischer already explained that due to the formation of hemiacetal condensation reaction, a bond will be established between the oxygen atom of the fifth hydroxyl group with the carbon atom of the first carbon atom. Between the fifth hydroxyl group and the first carbon atom, one bond will be formed. As a result, the open chain structure will be converted into the cyclic form or ring form. And here what Haworth says, the ring is having a shape that is resembling a pyramid ring. Okay, in organic compound there is a ring structure. There are different types of ring structures in organic compounds. Since the ring structure of D-glucose formed as a result of hemiacetal condensation reaction resembles a pyramid ring, which is having a specific shape, D-glucose can be better called as D-glucopyranose. Instead of simply saying beta D-glucose, it should be called as D-glucopyranose. So according to Haworth, the two different anomeric forms are alpha D-glucopyranose and beta D-glucopyranose. What is the difference between alpha D-glucopyranose and beta D-glucopyranose? They are nothing but alpha D-glucose and beta D-glucose. But the ring structure will have a shape that is resembling a pyramid ring. Here you can notice in the case of alpha D-glucose, the OH group is present below the plane, and in the case of beta D-glucose, OH group is present above the plane. In the case of Fischer's planar structure, it is right hand side and left hand side respectively. And so we can summarize. In the case of Fischer's planar structure, alpha D-glucose will have OH group at the right hand side of its anomeric carbon atom or carbonyl carbon atom. And in the case of Haworth ring structure, alpha D-glucopyranose will have OH group at OH group below the plane of the structure. On the other hand, beta D-glucose In Fischer's planar structure, we have OH group at the right hand side of the left hand side of the anomeric carbon atom, and in the case of Haworth ring structure, beta D glucose will have its hydroxyl group above the plane of the anomeric carbon atom. So I hope now it is very clear between alpha D glucose and alpha D glucopyranose, beta D glucose and beta D glucopyranose. Alpha D glucopyranose and alpha D glucose are the same, but pyranose will have a pyran ring structure as explained by Haworth. Beta D glucose and beta D glucopyranose are chemically the same, but beta D glucopyranose will have a pyran ring structure as explained by Haworth. So these are the three different forms of D glucose. This is simple D glucose. This is alpha D glucose as explained by Fischer. This is beta D glucose as explained by Fischer. And this is alpha D glucopyranose as explained by Haworth. And this is beta D glucopyranose as explained by Haworth. So these are the three different representation of D glucose structure. And we found that there are two anomeric forms, alpha and beta forms for D glucose. So this is the structure of alpha D glucose. This is the carbonyl carbon atom or anomeric carbon atom. First carbon atom, number 1 carbon atom, second, 3, 4, fifth, and you can see, okay, this is hemiacetal bridge. The sixth carbon atom is not included in the ring. Sixth carbon atom is out of the ring structure because the fifth carbon atom is linked to the first carbon atom through the oxygen atom. Sixth carbon is not included in the structure. So we can say carbon atom number 1 up to number 5 plus the oxygen atom forms the ring. There are 6 members in the ring. The first 5 carbon atoms and the oxygen atom forms the ring structure of D glucose. Sixth carbon atom is not included in the ring structure. Now let's come to the important functions of D glucose. D glucose is the major source of energy in our body, the chief fuel molecule we can say. It is the only source of energy for the nervous system and RBC. Glucose is a precursor of many of the important biomolecules such as starch, cellulose, glycogen, ribose, deoxyribose, fructose, etc. D glucose is the indirect precursor of all biomolecules. Okay, it is a direct precursor of all other carbohydrates. It is the indirect precursor of all other biomolecules. Now let's come to fructose. Fructose is a monosaccharide. It belongs to the group ketohexose. Fructose is the sweetest monosaccharide. It is present in fruits abundantly, so it is also known as fruit sugar. It is also present in honey. Hexose, it is a ketohexose sugar containing 6 carbon atoms. It contains a keto group attached with the second carbon atom. In the case of D glucose, we found that the aldehyde group, the functional group is attached to the first carbon atom. For all aldoses, aldehyde group is attached to the first carbon atom, but generally we can say for all ketoses, the keto group is attached to the second carbon atom. Okay, so in the case of fructose also, the keto group is attached to the second carbon atom, and this carbon is known as the carbonyl carbon atom. So this is the open chain structure of D fructose. This is the first carbon. And how the carbon atoms are numbered? The carbon atoms are numbered from the end to which the carbonyl group is, or the carbonyl carbon is more close. So this is the first carbon atom. The second carbon is the carbonyl carbon. Third carbon, fourth carbon, fifth carbon, sixth carbon. 6 carbon atoms are there. Okay, so this is the open chain structure. As in the case of D-glucose, D-fructose will also undergo a reaction between its carbonyl carbon atom and penultimate hydroxyl group. Okay, there will be a reaction between the penultimate hydroxyl group with the carbonyl group. That means the second carbon atom in the case of fructose. And this reaction is now specifically known as hemi-ketal condensation reaction. In the case of glucose, D-glucose, the reaction was known as hemi-acetal condensation reaction because aldehyde group was involved. Here in the case of fructose, the carbonyl group is a keto group. Because of that, the reaction is known as hemi-ketal condensation reaction. So hemi-ketal condensation reaction occurs between the carbonyl group and the fifth carbon atom. As a result, a bond will be established between the fifth carbon with the second carbon, not the first carbon, second carbon, and it will form a ring. It will form a 5-membered ring. Okay, in that 5-membered ring, 4 carbon atoms are there: second carbon, third carbon, fourth carbon, and fifth carbon, plus 1 oxygen atom. Totally 4 carbon atoms and 1 oxygen atom will be present in the 5-membered ring. Okay, so we can say here in the Fischer's planar structure of D-fructose, a 5-membered ring is formed, and based on the position of hydroxyl group at the carbonyl carbon atom, that means at the second carbon atom, D-fructose can be D-fructose will have 2 anomeric forms: alpha D-fructose and beta D-fructose. Alpha D-fructose, in the case of alpha D-fructose, OH group is present at the right hand side of the second carbon, and in the case of beta D-fructose, OH group is present at the left hand side of the second carbon atom. And in the case of when we come to the Haworth ring structure, D-fructose, the ring structure of D-fructose resembles a furan ring in organic molecule. Furan ring is a 5-membered ring. As it resembles a furan ring, it is D-fructose is also known as D-fructofuranose, as called by Haworth. D-fructofuranose. Why it is called furanose? Because the ring structure resembles a furan ring, a 5-membered ring. So accordingly, the name of D-fructofuranose, alpha D-fructose will be alpha D-fructofuranose, and the name of beta D-fructose will be beta D-fructofuranose, as explained by Haworth. So these are the 3 different forms of structures for D-glucose: open chain structure, Fischer's planar structure, and Haworth ring structure. Okay, and there are 2 anomeric forms: alpha D-fructose and beta D-fructose, or also known as alpha D-fructofuranose and beta D-fructofuranose, as explained by Haworth. Now let's see the functions of D-fructose. D-fructose is the only source of energy for spermatozoa. D-glucose is oxidized by glycolytic pathway and produces energy in our system. D-fructose forms the building block of a plant polysaccharide called inulin. And D-fructose is one of the constituent of sucrose. Okay, so these are the important functions of D-fructose. Now let's see the other hexoses, D-mannose and D-galactose. D-mannose is an aldehyde hexose sugar. It is commonly present in plants. Mannose is seen in some glycoproteins also. Within the cell, D-mannose is oxidized by glycolytic pathway and produces energy. Mannose is a precursor of manuronic acid. The pyranose form of D-mannose is called D-mannopyranose. Okay, and there is alpha D-mannopyranose and beta D-mannopyranose forms, 2 anomeric forms. D-galactose is also an aldose hexose sugar. Galactose is a component of the disaccharide lactose. Lactose is a milk sugar. So lactose and in the structure of lactose, it is a disaccharide. Two monosaccharide units are there. One is D-glucose and other is D-galactose. D-galactose is common monosaccharide present in glycoproteins and glycolipid. Galactose is synthesized in mammary glands. D-galactose is oxidized via the glycolytic pathway and produces energy in the nervous system. The pyranose form is called D-galactopyranose, and there are two anomeric forms, alpha D-galactopyranose and beta D-galactopyranose. D-mannose is known as the 2' epimer of D-glucose, and D-galactose is known as the 4' epimer of D-glucose. What is an epimer? Epimers are isomers in which there is a difference in the configuration of hydrogen and hydroxyl group around a particular carbon atom other than the functional group carbon. Okay, if there is a difference in the configuration around the functional group carbon, we will call them as anomers, alpha D anomer and beta D anomer, alpha D glucose and beta D glucose. See here, D-mannose has a difference in the configuration not around the first carbon atom, not around the carbonyl carbon atom. The difference in configuration is around the second carbon atom. So D-mannose is known as 2' epimer of D-glucose, and D-galactose is having a difference in the configuration around the fourth carbon atom. So D-galactose is known as the 4' epimer of D-glucose. So D-mannose and D-glucose are 2' epimers of each other. D-galactose and D-glucose are 4' epimers of each other. So this is the structure of D-galactose. You can see 2, 3, 4. The fourth carbon atom, hydrogen and hydroxyl groups are having a difference in the configuration compared to D-glucose. Fourth carbon atom. Here you can see first, second, third, fourth carbon atom. The fourth carbon atom, the hydrogen and hydroxyl group have opposite configuration, and this is mannose. You can see here at the second carbon atom there is a difference in the configuration when compared with the D-glucose. In the Haworth structure, you can see here at the second carbon atom there is a difference in the arrangement of hydrogen and hydroxyl group. So mannose and glucose are 2' epimers of each other, and mannose and galactose and D-glucose are 4' epimers of each other. Now let's come to pentoses. There is ribose, deoxyribose, ribulose, xylose, arabinose, cellulose. All these are examples for pentoses. Ribose is an aldopentose sugar. It is formed in the body from D-glucose by hexose monophosphate pathway. Ribose is a sugar present in ribonucleotide, which are the building blocks of RNA. 2-deoxyribose is a sugar present in deoxyribonucleotide, which is the building block of DNA. Here we can see the structure of ribose. 5 carbon atoms are there in the open chain structure. Ribose can form a structure called the furanose ring structure, similar to what we have observed in the case of fructose. Okay, the first carbon atom of the ribose sugar react with the fifth carbon atom, and a hemiacetal bridge will be formed between the fourth carbon and the first carbon of ribose. Okay, penultimate carbon in the case of ribose is fourth carbon atom. So fourth carbon atom and the first carbon atom are linked via a hemiacetal bridge to form a pyran ring structure that is known as furan. That resembles a furan ring, not pyran ring, furan ring structure. So it is known as ribofuranose. Two different anomeric forms are there: alpha D ribofuranose and beta D ribofuranose. The sugar present in RNA is beta D ribofuranose, and the sugar present in DNA is 2-deoxy beta D ribofuranose. At the second carbon atom there is no hydroxyl group. The oxygen is removed from already the hydroxyl group undergo deoxygenation. The second carbon atom undergo deoxygenation to form 2-deoxy beta D ribofuranose. So ribofuranose beta-D-ribofuranose is a sugar present in ribonucleotide, and 2-deoxy-beta-D-ribofuranose is a sugar present in deoxyribonucleotides. These are the chemical structures of arabinose, xylose and cellulose. Arabinose is the 2' epimer of ribose. Xylose is the 3' epimer of ribose sugar, D-ribose sugar, and cellulose is a keto-pentose sugar. Okay, it is a keto-pentose sugar, and this is a structure of L-cellulose, not D-cellulose. L-cellulose. Arabinose, xylose and cellulose are mostly present in plants. Okay. D-ribose doesn't have any role in energy production. Ribose and deoxyribose in solutions form 5-membered furanose ring structure, D-ribofuranose and 2-deoxyribofuranose respectively. Ribose and ribulose are isomers. Arabinose and xylose are 2' and 3' epimers of D-ribose respectively. Cellulose is a 3' epimer of D-ribulose. Okay. Arabinose and xylose are present only in plants. Now let's come to examples for tetrose sugars. D-erythrose and D-erythrose are examples for tetrose sugars containing 4 carbon atoms. Erythrose is an aldotetrose where erythrulose is a ketotetrose. Erythrose and erythrose are formed in our body as intermediates of metabolic pathways. They will not form ring structures in solution. Okay, so only 3 groups out of the 10 different groups of monosaccharides, only 3 different groups can form ring structures: aldohexoses, aldohexoses, ketohexoses, and aldopentases form ring structure. Aldohexoses form pyranose ring structure, 6-membered ring structure, whereas ketohexoses and aldopentases form 5-membered furanose ring structures. Erythrose and erythrulose are isomers. Here the structure of erythrose, triose, erythrulose, etc. are shown. And finally we are going to see examples for trioses. Trioses are the simplest of 4 monosaccharides containing 3 carbon atoms. Examples are D-glyceraldehyde, it is an aldotriose, and dihydroxyacetone, it is a ketotriose. Glyceraldehyde and dihydroxyacetone are isomers having the same molecular formula but different structural formula. Isomers, just like glucose and fructose, just like ribose and ribulose. The glyceraldehyde and dihydroxyacetone are also examples for isomers. Dihydroxyacetone is optically inactive as it doesn't have an asymmetric carbon atom in its structure. Okay, what is an asymmetric carbon? Asymmetric carbon is a carbon in which all 4 valencies, all different valencies of the carbon atom are occupied by 4 different atoms of group. That is an asymmetric carbon atom. So asymmetric carbon atoms will have the property of optical rotation. It will show the property of optical rotation. So all monosaccharides have at least one asymmetric carbon atom except dihydroxyacetone. Dihydroxyacetone is the only monosaccharide which doesn't have an asymmetric carbon atom. So therefore they are optically inactive. There is no D and L. Capital D and L means dextro and levo forms based on the configuration of hydrogen and hydroxyl group around the penultimate carbon, and there are no small d and small l form. Small d and small l indicate dextrorotatory and levorotatory. What is dextrorotation? The ability to rotate the path of the light towards the right hand side is known as dextrorotation, and the ability to rotate light path towards the left hand side is known as levorotation. So dextrorotation and levorotation are the properties of optically active compounds. All monosaccharides have, except dihydroxyacetone, have asymmetric carbon atoms. Therefore they have 2 forms, dextrorotatory form and levorotatory form. But dihydroxyacetone, as it doesn't have an asymmetric carbon atom, cannot rotate light either towards the left or towards the right. So we will say dihydroxyacetone is the only optically inactive monosaccharide. Glyceraldehyde and dihydroxyacetone are formed in the body as metabolic intermediates. Okay, they are seen in certain metabolic pathways in our body. Here the structures of D-glyceraldehyde and dihydroxyacetone are shown. Okay, so this is D-glyceraldehyde. Why? Because at the penultimate carbon, at the second carbon atom, in the case of glyceraldehyde, the second carbon is the penultimate carbon. At the penultimate carbon, hydroxyl group is present at the right hand side. So it is D-glyceraldehyde, and if it is at the left hand side, that can be called as L-glyceraldehyde. But in the case of dihydroxyacetone, there is no hydroxyl group or hydrogen at the penultimate carbon. Penultimate carbon, the second carbon, that is the functional group carbon or carbonyl carbon. So it cannot be differentiated into D and L form, dextro and levo form. Dihydroxyacetone means there is only one form, that is simply dihydroxyacetone. No D and L form or no small d, dextrorotatory, or small l, levorotatory forms. Okay, so dihydroxyacetone is optically inactive. So let's come to isomerism in sugars. Okay, there are different types of isomerism. Epimerism, epimers and epimerism. Already we have discussed what is an epimer. Okay, D-mannose and D-glucose are 2' epimers of each other. D-galactose and D-glucose are 4' epimers of each other. We have discussed this thing. No need to discuss again. Anomers and anomerism. This also we have discussed. Alpha D glucose and beta D glucose are anomers of each other. Alpha D galactose and beta D galactose are anomers of each other. Alpha D mannose and beta D mannose are anomers of each other. Alpha D glucopyranose and beta D glucopyranose are anomers of each other. We have discussed these things, so no need to discuss again. In this figure, it is clearly shown the difference between alpha D glucose and beta D glucose. In the case of alpha D glucose, at the anomeric carbon atom, the OH group is below the plane, but in the case of beta D glucose, at the anomeric carbon atom, the OH group is above the plane. Another important property of monosaccharides is mutarotation. Mutarotation is a phenomenon exhibited by certain monosaccharides in solutions. It is defined as the change in specific rotation of optically active substances without any change in other properties. In short, the decrease or increase in specific rotation due to the interconversion of two different anomeric forms of alpha and beta forms in solution is known as mutarotation. Such changes in specific rotation due to the interconversion of anomeric forms of D-glucose are can be considered as an example for mutarotation. Here we can see this is alpha D-glucose. When D-glucose is crystallized using alcohol, we will get alpha D-glucose. It is having a specific rotation of plus 112 degree. That means it is small d optical isomeric form and dextrorotatory form. Plus sign indicate that it is dextrorotatory. And here beta D glucose is there. When D glucose is crystallized from pyridine solution, we will get beta D glucose. It is having a specific rotation of plus 19 degree. Plus 90 degree means this is also dextrorotatory form. Okay, so the angle of a specific rotation is plus 19 degree. See, when These two forms, alpha D glucose and beta D glucose, crystallized from alcohol and pyridine solution, are brought to pure water. When these two, whether it is alpha D glucose or beta D glucose, when these two D glucose are brought to pure water, the specific rotation will gradually change. For example, the specific rotation of alpha D glucose will decrease from 112 to 52.5 degree, and the specific rotation of beta D glucose will increase from plus 90 to 52.5 degree. So in pure water, alpha D glucose and beta D glucose will form an equilibrium mixture in which the specific rotation is plus 52.5 degree. So this increase and decrease of specific rotation of alpha D glucose and beta D glucose are known as mutarotation. This mutarotation is because of the conversion of alpha form of D glucose into beta D form and vice versa. So this is about all about monosaccharides. Now let's come to the second group of carbohydrate, oligosaccharides. Carbohydrates containing 2 to 10 monosaccharide units are generally called oligosaccharides. The monosaccharide units are linked together by a special type of linkage called glycosidic linkage. Let's see what is a glycosidic linkage. A glycosidic linkage is defined as a linkage formed by the reaction between the hydroxyl group of two monosaccharide unit with the elimination of one molecule of water. What does it mean? The hydroxyl group of one monosaccharide react with the hydroxyl group of another monosaccharide. One molecule of water is liberated and a covalent bond will be established between two monosaccharides. That linkage is known as glycosidic linkage. Depending on the number of monosaccharide units, oligosaccharides may be classified as disaccharide containing 2 monosaccharide units, trisaccharide containing 3 monosaccharide units, tetrasaccharide containing 4, pentasaccharide containing 5, hexasaccharide containing 6, heptasaccharide containing 7, octasaccharide containing 8, nonasaccharide containing 9, and decasaccharide containing 10 number of saccharide units. So in the decasaccharide containing 10 saccharide unit, how many glycosidic linkages will be there? There will be 9 glycosidic linkages. So the number of glycosidic linkages in an oligosaccharide is n minus 1. N is the number of saccharide units. When the number of saccharide units minus 1 gives the number of glycosidic linkages. Monosaccharides and disaccharides are generally known as sugars because they are sweet in taste. Monosaccharides are specifically called as simple sugars because they contain only one saccharide unit. So monosaccharides and disaccharides are generally called as sugars. Monosaccharides are specifically known as simple sugars. Among the oligosaccharides, disaccharides are very common in the living system and perform important biological functions. For example, sucrose, maltose, lactose, isomaltose, cellobiose, etc. Trisaccharides are very rare. Maltotriose is a trisaccharide consisting of 3 D-glucose units. Raffinose is also known as mannitose, is a trisaccharide that is present in certain vegetables. Other oligosaccharides, tetrasaccharide, pentasaccharides, etc., are very rare. Some of these are formed in the digestive tract during the partial enzymatic digestion of polysaccharides. So disaccharides are the most commonest group of oligosaccharides. Trisaccharides are very rarely seen, like maltotriose and raffinose, and other oligosaccharides are not usually seen and they don't have any biological functions. So let us discuss more about disaccharides. Examples for disaccharide. Disaccharides can be divided into two classes, reducing disaccharides and non-reducing disaccharides. Reducing disaccharides containing free aldehyde or keto group in its structure, example maltose and lactose. Non-reducing disaccharides do not contain a free aldehyde or keto group in their structure, example sucrose. So sucrose is an example for non-reducing disaccharides, and there are many examples for reducing disaccharides like lactose, maltose, cellulose, etc. The difference between reducing disaccharide and non-reducing disaccharide is reducing disaccharides will have reducing properties like monosaccharides. They have reducing property and they can be called as reducing sugars. But non-reducing disaccharides do not contain a free aldehyde or keto group. There is no free carbonyl group. As a result, they do not exhibit reducing properties. So they are called as non-reducing sugars. Now let's discuss the chemistry of important oligosaccharides. Maltose. Maltose is a reducing disaccharide, usually called as malt sugar because it is present abundantly in malt. Malt is partially fermented starch. The structure of maltose consists of two molecules of D-glucose linked together by an alpha-1,4-glycosidic linkage. Maltose is formed in the digestive tract during the hydrolysis of starch and glycogen by an enzyme called amylase. Maltose is hydrolyzed into two molecules of D-glucose by an enzyme called maltase. Here we can see the structure of maltose. There are two D-glucose units. Okay, both the glucose units are in the D form. Both are alpha D-glucose, and the first carbon of the one alpha D-glucose is linked with the fourth carbon atom of the second alpha D-glucose. So this linkage is known as alpha-1,4-glycosidic linkage. So we can say that maltose is a disaccharide. It's a reducing disaccharide containing two molecules of alpha D-glucose units linked together by an alpha-1,4-glycosidic linkage. You can see here in one of the alpha D-glucose units, the carbonyl group, the functional group is in the free form. That is the reason why it can exhibit reducing property, and maltose is known as a reducing disaccharide sugar. Lactose is a reducing disaccharide. It is usually called milk sugar because it is present abundantly in milk. The structure of lactose consists of one molecule of alpha D-glucose and one molecule of beta D-galactose linked together by beta-1,4-glycosidic linkage. Lactose is hydrolyzed by an enzyme called lactase to yield one molecule of D-glucose and one molecule of D-galactose. Lactose is specifically called as beta-lactose because the linkage is beta-1,4 linkage. You can see the chemical structure here. This is alpha D-glucose. Sorry, this is this is a structure. This is a structure of lactose. This is beta D-galactose, and this one is alpha D-glucose. So the first carbon of beta D-galactose is linked to the fourth carbon of alpha D-glucose to form a beta-1,4-glycosidic linkage. Since there is a free functional group with the alpha D-glucose, lactose can exhibit reducing properties, and it is called as a reducing sugar. Another example for disaccharide is sucrose. Sucrose is a non-reducing sugar. It lacks a free aldehyde or keto group. It is usually called as table sugar because it is commonly used as a sweetening agent in food and drinks. The structure of sucrose consists of one molecule of alpha D-glucose molecule and one molecule of beta D-fructose linked together by an alpha-1,2-glycosidic linkage. Glycosidic linkage. Both functional groups are involved in the formation of the glycosidic linkages. The first carbon of alpha D-glucose and second carbon of beta D-fructose. First carbon of alpha D glucose is the functional group and second carbon of beta D fructose is the functional group. So since both functional groups are involved in the formation of glycosidic linkage, there is no free functional group and therefore sucrose cannot exhibit reducing properties and it is known as a non-reducing sugar. Sucrose is hydrolyzed by an enzyme called sucrase to yield one molecule of D-glucose and one molecule of D-fructose, and this sucrase enzyme is present in our digestive tract. Yeah, here you can see the structure of sucrose. This is alpha D-glucose and this is beta D-fructose, and this linkage is alpha 1,2 glycosidic linkage. Okay. The chemical name is alpha D-glucopyranosyl 1,2 beta D-fructofuranoside. That's the chemical name of chemical name of sucrose. There are also many other examples for disaccharides, isomaltose, cellobiose. The chemical structures are shown here. Now let's come to polysaccharides. Polysaccharides are the complex of all carbohydrates. Polysaccharides contain large numbers of monosaccharide units linked together by glycosidic linkages, or we can say that polysaccharides are large polymers or long polymers of monosaccharide units. Polysaccharides are highly complex carbohydrates which are polymers of monosaccharide units. Depending on the chemical composition or based on the type of monosaccharide unit present, polysaccharides can be classified into two groups: homopolysaccharides and heteropolysaccharides, also known as homoglycans and heteroglycans. Heteropolysaccharides, also known as heteroglycans, homopolysaccharides are also known as homoglycans. Homopolysaccharides contain the same type of saccharide units. That means they are homogeneous. For example, starch. Starch is a homopolymer of alpha D-glucose. Glycogen is a homopolymer of alpha D-glucose. Cellulose is a homopolymer of beta D-glucose. Chitin is a homopolymer of N-acetyl D-glucosamine. Inulin is a homopolymer of D-fructose. All these are examples for homopolysaccharides. Examples of heteropolysaccharides are hyaluronic acid, heparin, chondroitin sulfate, etc. These are all examples for heteropolysaccharide. And heteropolysaccharides containing repeating units of an amino sugar. What is amino sugar? Amino sugar is an amino derivative of a sugar. Amino derivative of monosaccharides are known as amino sugar. And the oxidation form of a monosaccharide is known as sugar acid. So, if a heteropolysaccharide contains repeating units of an amino sugar and a sugar acid, they are known as glycosaminoglycans. And these glycosaminoglycans are commonly present in our body. Okay, they are present in extracellular space. These glycosaminoglycans hold large quantities of water and increases water retention capacity of the tissue. So, examples of glycosaminoglycans are hyaluronic acid, heparin, and chondroitin sulfate. First, let us see the structure of starch. Starch is a homopolysaccharide composed of hundreds or thousands of D-glucose units which are joined by glycosidic linkages. Generally, starch is composed of two different types of polymers, amylose and amylopectin. So, starch is a mixture of two different types of polymers, amylose and amylopectin. The proportion of amylose and amylopectin varies depending on the source from where the starch is obtained. Okay, starch is present in different food substances. So depending on the source, whether it is potato or whether it is cassava or whether it is rice, depending on the source, there will be variations in the proportion of amyloses and amylopectins. Amylose is a straight chain polymer of D-glucose in which glucose units are linked together by alpha 1,4 glycosidic linkage. You see, amylose is a straight chain polymer. There are large numbers of alpha D-glucose units linked together by alpha 1,4 glycosidic linkage. But amylopectin is a branched polymer of D-glucose units. Here, D-glucose units are linked together by two different types of glycosidic linkages, alpha 1,4 linkage and alpha 1,6 glycosidic linkage. Alpha 1,6 linkage is responsible for the branching of amylopectin molecule, and the branching is seen in every 24 up to 30 glucose residues. Here you can see the structure of amylose and amylopectin. Amylose is straight chain. Okay, there is only one type of linkage, alpha 1,4 glycosidic linkage, but in the case of amylopectin, there are straight chain portions, and two straight chain portions are interconnected or interlinked by alpha 1,6 glycosidic linkage. So we will say amylose is straight chain polymer, amylopectin is branched polymer. Amylose and amylopectin are present in starch, or we can say starch is a mixture of both amylose and amylopectins. Now let's come to glycogen. Glycogen is a branched polymer of D-glucose in which glucose units are linked together by two different types of linkages, alpha 1,4 and alpha 1,6 glycosidic linkage, as we have seen in the case of amylopectin of starch. Okay, glycogen is also known as animal starch. The alpha 1,6 linkage is responsible for the branching seen in glycogen molecule. The branching is seen in every 9 to 11 glucose residue. In the case of starch, it was 24 to 30 glucose residue, but in the case of glycogen, every 9 to 11 glucose residue there is an alpha 1,6 linkage, there is branching. So we can say that glycogen is more branched, the degree of branching is more in glycogen as compared to the amylopectin of starch. So we can say glycogen is having more complex structure as compared to amylopectin of starch. Glycogen is also hydrolyzed by amylases. Like starch, glycogen is also digested by amylase enzyme to produce two different types of monosaccharide, maltose and isomaltose. This maltose and isomaltose will be digested by maltase and isomaltase enzyme to liberate D-glucose units. Glycogen gives red color with iodine reagent. Okay, how we can differentiate between glycogen and starch? Glycogen will give red color with iodine reagent, whereas starch gives blue color with the iodine reagents. Now let's see the details of hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid is a heteropolysaccharide. It is present in connective tissue, bone, cartilage and also in synovial fluid of joints. It's a long polymeric chain composed of alternating units of N-acetyl beta-D glucosamine and beta-D glucuronic acid, which are joined by two different types of glycosidic linkages, beta 1,4 and beta 1,3 glycosidic linkages. Okay. Functions of hyaluronic acid. It is a glycosaminoglycan. It is important component of bone and cartilage. It is present in the synovial fluid of joint. You know what is synovial fluid? Synovial fluid is a lubricant that is present in the joints. It functions as a shock absorber. Okay. So this is the structure of hyaluronic acid. Now let's move to heparin. Heparin is a heteropolysaccharide. It is an example for glycosaminoglycan. It is present in liver and lungs. It is a long polymeric chain composed of alternating units of N-acetyl beta-D galactosamine 6-sulfate and beta-D glucuronic acid, which are joined by two different types of glycosidic linkages, beta 1,4 and beta 1,3 glycosidic linkages. Heparin is a natural anticoagulant which prevents blood coagulation in blood vessels. Okay, in our blood vessel, blood is not usually coagulated. It is because of the presence of heparin. these are the repeating units of heparin. Heparin contains sulfur in structure. And finally, we are coming to the structure of cellulose. Cellulose is the most abundant carbohydrate and the most abundant biomolecule in nature. Plant world synthesizes around 80 kg of cellulose per individuals per day. It is a structural polysaccharide present in plant cell wall. Cellulose provides protection and mechanical support to the plant cell. The structure of cellulose consists of large numbers of beta-D-glucose units joined by beta-1,4-glycosidic linkage. So we can say it is a straight chain polymer of beta-D-glucose units linked by beta-1,4-glycosidic linkage. See, this is the structure of cellulose. Here beta-D-glucose units are linked together by beta-1,4-glycosidic linkages. Cellulose is digested by an enzyme known as cellulase. Cellulase enzyme is absent in our intestine, therefore cellulose is not digestible in our intestine. Cellulase enzyme is present in the rumen chamber of ruminant animals, cattle. There is a special chamber known as rumen, and there are 4 chambers: rumen, reticulum, omasum and abomasum. In the rumen there are certain symbiotic bacteria that produces cellulase enzyme. So that is the reason why animals can eat grass. They can digest, they can eat leaf, they can digest cellulose. But in our intestine, cellulase enzyme is absent. Because of that, we are unable to digest cellulose. Cellulose is not digested in humans as we lack the enzyme cellulase in the intestine and has no nutritional value. There is no nutritional value for cellulose. It is digested in ruminant animals with the help of cellulase enzyme produced by symbiotic bacteria present in the rumen of the stomach. The major but even though cellulose is not having any nutritional value, cellulose is important in our diet because it is the major component of dietary fiber in humans. And it is helpful for the following: it gives bulk to the food, it increases the porosity and water retention capacity of the food, it increases the penetration of digestive secretions and enhances digestive process, it helps in water reabsorption in the large intestine, it increases peristaltic movement and reduces constipation. So cellulose is playing a very important role in our diet because it is the major component of dietary fiber. Cellulose is a laxative. We can say it's a laxative. So this is all about the carbohydrates, their structure, properties and functions. Thank you for your attention, your comments, likes and dislikes. Thank you for subscription, and protect yourself and the society from COVID-19. Thank you so much.